Welcome into this week's iteration of the WIBW Coaches Show. This week, I'm joined by Wamego football head coach Weston Moody. Coach, how's it going?
Going well. Just finished up a trip to Brazil and getting back on it after a Acacia moratorium.
Yeah, and so that's part of why I wanted to have you on this week's show. I saw on Twitter you got back from Brazil. Looked like a fun trip. Explain to me why you were there and what you learned.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I had a foreign exchange student from Brazil that stayed with my family for an entire year, actually the COVID year. And he kicked for me and was an all-state kicker, ended up playing at Butler County Community College. And then after he played there for a season, went back to Brazil, and he's actually starting an American football project down there where he's introducing the sport to kids in the capital of Brazil. And I decided to go down there and help him out a little bit. And in the meantime, when I was down there, I met a couple other coaches that are coaching some pro teams down there and done some clinics over the years. And so it was an opportunity to go down and visit some other teams. So I took advantage of it, and it's fun being down there because it's Brazil. The people are great, the weather is fantastic. So we also had some fun when we were down there.
That's fantastic. I want to ask a little more about the foreign exchange student. How did that go about when he got to campus at Wamego High School? Did he want to play on the football team immediately, or did you approach him?
Well, in his bio, he said he was more of a basketball player. But me and being the head football coach, I'm like, he's from Brazil. He has to be able to kick. So we took him out, and he took his shoes off and kicked the ball barefoot like 45 yards or something. And I was like, wow, I think that's going to play at our level. So we threw him out there, and he's a great kid. He's considered part of our family. And so we've been close ever since he's been back to Brazil. So he loves the game. He never played football before he stepped on campus, but now it's kind of his passion, and he's got this project developed, and it's becoming pretty popular. The NFL is going back there. The Chiefs are going to be playing there in Sao Paulo this year. So he's pretty jacked about that because he was here. When he was here, he became a Chiefs fan, I guess, being in Kansas. So he's pretty excited about that. He was at the pro game last year between the Eagles and the Steelers, I think is who it was. And so he's an adamant NFL fan.
That is super, super cool. Now I want to ask you a little bit about this year's team. Y'all were really good last year. You return a lot of production. Tell me about how the summer has been with your team and who some of the early stars that are emerging are.
Well, we return our quarterback, Logan Fulton, and he's been really kind of a great leader for us this summer. He's been, putting the work in, even in the Acacia moratorium. He's been out there working with the receivers and doing things outside of what we do in our daily basis. So we're excited to have him back. We have some receivers back. Reed McDiffit is back. We got Dominic Falco's back on the offensive side. So we have some pieces that are there. Our defense is almost completely back from last year. Mason Ish is back at linebacker, Talon Conrad. We got a lot of guys. Roman Eveland up front, Josh Flanagan. So I could name all of them because they're pretty much all back on the defensive side. So we're pretty excited about our prospects this season. I think kind of the bar has been set the last couple of years. Obviously, the 2022 going to the state championship. Ever since then, I think they're hungry for more and to get back on top and win it all.
That is super, super cool. I want to ask a little bit more about Logan Fulton. He was great last year, his first season starting, got a lot of attention. What have you seen from him this summer on the field?
I think his just understanding of the offense, being a sophomore, we threw him in the fire, and he did a fantastic job, threw for over 1,700 yards. And he's really kind of studied the game in the offseason. He's got some coaching that he's getting outside of what we can give him. He's done a great job at just getting his receivers on the same page, and he's just been that guy that you know what you're going to get out of him. And so I'd say the leadership part has been great as well, and we're really looking forward to seeing him on the field as well as the others this season.
Got about a month and a half until the season starts, maybe a little more. who are some of the games that you have circled on your calendar? I know you don't want to give any teams bulletin board material, but when you look at that schedule and you think about the teams you're going to play, who are like the first two or three teams you think about?
Well, we've been talking a lot about Concordia since their game one. We try to stay, with the visual of one game at a time. So we've really been preparing for that game specifically. But if you look at our schedule, I mean, we have all of our NCKL opponents are great. Year in, year out, our league is pretty solid. They like to run the ball and be physical downhill. So we know we're going to have some battles. Obviously our two non-con games are against Bueller and against Topeka Hayden, and those games were really nail biters. Obviously we won the Hayden game and won the Bueller game, and then Bueller came into our place in the playoffs and beat us and knocked us out. So every game is going to be tough. That's kind of what we wanted when we created this schedule. Hopefully, it gives us an opportunity to get better and play our best brand of football towards the end of the season.
I want to ask also about multi-sport athletes. It's something that we love in our sports department. What is the importance of having guys on your team who also play basketball or baseball or run track? What element does that add on and off the field?
I think just competing in all year long. I think that's extremely important. You can practice and you can do some things in the off season. There's nothing like competing at a high level. It puts you in a whole different mental side. And I think that when you play in tight games, sometimes your abilities get taken over by the mental side of the game. And if you can compete and develop that mentality, I think that's going to help you in the long run. And we talk about it every day is that you can use these skills, that we're doing in the weight room on any sport. But there's nothing like competing at a high level. So I think that's the number one thing is just competing all year long.
Absolutely. My last question for you, take us into the coach's room for a second. The last 6 or so weeks of this summer, what would you like to accomplish with your team?
I just think building camaraderie. I think right now that's kind of what we're focused on. I think there's something to be said for having the experience of competing with your friends and building that camaraderie that you're gonna give your all and especially you got seniors that we talk about. Their last journey is starting right now for this last year of high school football. So building the camaraderie is important for us right now. So we do a lot of team building stuff. Towards the end of the summer, we're going to go hike a mountain because every year we do some type of challenge. This year, we're going to go to Colorado and hike a 14er together. And I think that's important. You talk the X's and O's and you talk about all the things you can do in the game of football, but there's nothing like building the camaraderie and having that experience and to look back on from years to come.
That is awesome. All right, Coach. Thanks so much for joining me on this week's edition of the Coaches Show. You're back from Brazil, focused on football. 6 or so more weeks until the season starts. We're excited to see you and the Wamego football team out there. That's it for this week's edition of the Coaches Show. Hope you'll tune in again next week.